it's only a few bad apples. They're mostly good. They're mostly fine. They're mostly what is there to make the world a better place. What do you think?
Mostly.
Mostly.
We're talking cops. We're talking cops and what a naysayer might counter what we're saying with. Specifically, that challenging cops and not immediately obeying cops, not immediately following their quote unquote lawful orders, is a bad idea. And you're ungrateful because they protect us. They're not all perfect. It's just a few bad apples. Why are you giving them a problem? Why challenge them?
I'll confess. There's a good chunk of what a cop would say that happens to coincide with what I would do. I
You
would.
mean like hypothetically under given circumstances?
Well, yeah, generally speaking.
Okay, but so
If a cop tells me, hey, don't go down that street there, floodwaters and all, I'll be like, thanks.
or it's 2 a.m.
Great idea.
Sure. But in interacting with the public, when we know they have to obey certain regulations and statutes and codes, given their training, given the current climate, that we all know that cops enjoy a social status above non-cops.
All right.
They're protected by prosecutors, they're
All right.
protected by judges, they're protected by fellow cops, and they're protected by politicians like mayors,
Okay.
who is the boss of the chief of police. So to claim it's just a few bad apples, really you got to look at does equality under the law, quote unquote, actually exist in actual reality?
I don't think anybody even wants that. Like,
Even if they claim it.
even if they claim it, they're saying, "Oh God, you can't really treat a cop the same as a crackhead."
But if both individuals commit the same crime, should they face the same punishment?
Most people will lock the crackhead up for the rest of his life and give the cop a paid vacation.
They may not admit that, but I would agree that maybe a good portion of them feel that way if they were being frank and honest.
Okay, so the nice sounding equal under the law
Right.
isn't a thing.
Again, based on hypocrisy, because they don't mind if they see cops getting caught abusing someone unlawfully, illegally, unethically, all that, on camera, on news somewhere, but the second it happens to them or their child,
Oh yeah,
they are not consistent. If you
Yeah.
can't apply your presumptions and assertions of what's best across the whole board, even when it hits you, you're not being consistent, therefore credible, truthful, or to be taken seriously or followed.
well, okay, so
If a few bad apples slams you in the face, now what? That's the question I would ask. And I'm trying to, again, steel man their position.
that's the hard part. Okay, so the steel man, I've seen people bend over backwards even after they were abused. Usually not like ongoing abuse. Like once someone's through a ringer with court, cops, what's called testifying, basically giving quote unquote testimony that they see and they know it's incorrect and they know it's a distortion and they know it's malicious, then they usually give it up. But with just one incident,
Well, it depends on the severity of the incident. I mean,
Yeah.
lying about a traffic ticket, they don't care. They'll let that slide.
yeah,
But having their house get swatted,
okay,
okay, things get real crystal clear when you get threatened with jail for doing nothing wrong and then taken to jail and then sexually assaulted at jail and then all the lies come in court and he faces no consequence. I mean, so all I'm trying to point out is to anyone who would say cops are good guys, don't challenge them, it's a few bad apples, that's a luxury of someone who does not have the courage to resist. They have a luxury through their compliance to what is so obviously domestic terrorism.
Well,
The
okay.
data support that.
So we were talking about people who were in general compliant but happen to be targeted. Then they drop it, because if you're the little old lady that obeyed your whole life, generally speaking, you'll never experience the bad apple.
Because an old lady is... Cops don't threaten old ladies.
No.
An old lady has no threat in her life from a cop.
Not usually. It happens sometimes by
If
accident
she's
or
drugged out
whatever.
of her mind and having mental issues,
or
maybe.
a mistake or wrong address or whatever.
Right. But still.
Or her son or a family member that she believes. Then she has a whole short circuit about how these people were wrong.
Again, different status, different classes in society that most people claim, oh no, that's not good. It should all be equality under the law. It's like it doesn't exist. Anyway.
Okay. So, but on the average, are they worthwhile part of our society?
Are you saying, do the cons outweigh the pros?
Yeah. I mean, because if we took them away, it'd be just the crackheads.
Yeah, check this. So, Detroit, as we know, is a broken city. They've have so many regulations. It's really hard to even start a business there. They've overtaxed all the companies. They've all left for greener pastures. It is apocalypse, pretty much an American apocalypse for Detroit. Mm-hmm. They could no longer afford to pay the insurance premiums from payouts due to lawsuits from civilians or average people against the police for their brutality in cases they won.
Okay.
They couldn't afford it anymore.
So they couldn't afford to insure themselves
to keep
to not beat people.
Right. They couldn't rein in their cops enough.
Okay.
To be able to make the checkbook balance. And so, out of desperation, they go, we have got to try something new because this ain't going to work. And they hire a private police force headed by a gentleman named Dale Brown. And if you Google that name, you'll find all about this. He's got videos on YouTube and everything. And those police go around actually acting from a customer service standpoint, where they're not out there to bully and stop and frisk and to, hey, show me your ID so I can check if you have any warrants so I can ruin your day and maybe the rest of your life. They're not out there looking for nonviolent victimless crimes and to cause the division. They're not out there for their ego. They're out there realizing my job is safer if my community respects me. And in that light, I will act in a way that treats these people like human beings instead of the dogs that all these politicians and judges want us to.
It's dangerous to treat, but it's dangerous to treat people like human beings because that crackhead can shoot you if you lose that upper hand for a minute, you can lose control of the situation.
That is always I am way okay with a cop playing it safe when he comes across someone who he may think is on drugs and unstable and may threaten him at a moment's notice. A, keep your distance. B, be ready to respond. I don't have anything. Look, if it were me, I'd be down with self-defense. I'm going home today, pal. And if that means I got to point a gun at you and I make a mistake, I'm sorry. It happens. But that's on an individual one-on-one level that happens. But over time, collectively, these neighborhoods have responded with, hey, that isn't the old style cop. If you get community support, now you've got way more numbers against a lone individual who might decide to do something crazy because he's having the worst day of his life.
All right.
So all I'm saying is, I'm suggesting to anyone who might be hearing this video that the option not only is available, it exists. It's been put into implementation and it's working. It's still there. I first learned of him a couple years ago. So when it comes to, this is the only way we got to do it, pros and cons, we weigh them against each other, there are options. There are better ways to go about this.
It's funny. I always think of, you see violent, you see cops, I fear, so I need to up the violence. And it's like, if it were a smaller company just doing a task, they would just send a lot more people and they'd have everybody turned down a notch.
Yeah.
and they just go in with a calm but irresistible wave of force rather than this amped up small army, you know. But here we are. We have a different style.
We do. So I guess that's how I would respond to this idea. My dad's a cop. My brother's a cop. How dare you talk bad about cops? It's been this way forever. I was a cop. I am a cop.
Okay. You're quoting. Not that we get accused of impersonating police, right?
I'm trying to be a good cop, and I'm not out there trying to be, commit any brutality or anything. What you may not understand is you may not like speeding limits, but unless they are in effect, people will go 100 miles an hour. You will have a much greater risk while driving on the road. I would say to this, life is dangerous. There's nothing secure or certain out there, and we already have crimes on the books for people who cause accidents.
There's so much better solutions to, for instance, speeding.
Right.
Now, I saw in another country one time their solution to speeding, and it was in a country that didn't have they didn't want a bunch of cops everywhere, kind of like unlike us.
Yeah.
So they had this thing where if there was a speeder on the road, there's a camera that or a radar detector that would detect it, and it'd make all the lights go in there against them.
Oh, really?
Oh, I was warned. I'm like, man, they're like, don't speed down this road, man. All the lights will catch up. And they're like, no, just drive right, and the lights will treat you good. It's like, oh my God,
that's an idea.
A light enforced.
Yeah.
It's not, camera enforced.
Wow.
It was the traffic situation went in your favor.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant. I always like that. I'm like, oh, hell, if you just went to the max with that, you run a light.
Yeah.
You run a light, the next one maybe puts up little barricades.
You know what I like, too, is, let's say somebody's driving recklessly, 100. If it's a totally empty, dry asphalt road, and you want to do 120 because your car is rated for 140 in every single way, go ahead. Yeah, you're risking an Autobahn smash that people have to clean up, but I'm not going to threaten you with violence and pull you over. However, if most people around you are going 60 and you're doing 120, not good. Out of a designated lane. So my idea was, rather than threaten to pull them over, approach with a gun, give them a ticket and a threat of arrest warrant, all this stuff, is if a cop car were to pull up next to them and start live streaming it to a website that was watched by the public, in the age of social media, he's going to get your face, and it's going to say 120 miles per hour. This person is, and the car too, obviously, this person is going to be known as risking public safety. Do you want your employer to see that? Do you want your family to see that?
No.
So it's using social media
It'd
pressure.
be interesting also. So if you're doing that, something that dangerous,
yeah,
it's easy to argue that you'd have no rightful objection to someone putting a paint pellet, shooting your car with a paint pellet, right? To mark it.
Yeah.
A little red blotch to mark that you're not that you're an unsafe driver. That's just to let everybody know, hey. So you start collecting those. I think it would be a deterrent.
Yeah. But of course, how much money does government collect through these speeding tickets? So it's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen. Yeah. It's a profit-based business.
Right. 100%.
It's not. It's
profit by violence.
Profit by violence.
Of violence.
And it amps up the violence.
Yeah. I mean, people get all kind of. Oh, am I thing on you there? Oh, okay. No. All right. So, do you want to move to the next topic, or
I do.
Next topic. All right. Let's move to the next topic. All right. So, if a lawyer can't do it, if they are literally that's the wrong word. If they are unable to do something in court, you can't do it. You don't have any hope of doing it. That's a really good lawyer.
So anything that can be done in court that's useful, a lawyer would be doing it.
Yeah,
it's essentially the same
thing. If you're playing the odds with 10 years of
prison they go to school for years in order to figure out what all can and can't be done in court and what's useful.
Right. You want to resurrect Johnny Cochran. Put him in your corner.
Yeah.
Their whole team.
All right.
And if they can't do it, what hope do you
And that
have?
makes sense. I mean, it seems true. It seems that anything that can be done to I don't know.
Improve your situation or
Yeah,
station.
to properly like defend someone,
Yeah.
a lawyer should be within the reach of any lawyer. There should be nothing that's off limits to a lawyer. And I agree that there should be nothing that's off limits to someone who's chosen to represent another person.
However, are there limits?
Sadly, there are.
There are limits.
So
you're still claiming
what's
that
one of the big limits?
you can do something better than a lawyer, more effective.
We're saying that he can't do it at all. That there is a whole field of defense that a lawyer cannot reach to. That's the problem here, and that's unfortunate. I think they should be able to reach into it, and I think they should be. I think that if someone pays them and they say, "Listen, you need to reach into this," they should do it. But
Okay, but they're
but
undoing.
is it
their
because
own-
they're in it? Well, and there's some things that they're not able to reach in because it's ineffective or unethical. But the thing I'm talking about is ethical and effective.
ineffective when done correctly? So yeah. Now,
So-
just as a quick caveat, I've heard with my own 2 ears, and I have made myself recordings of lawyers saying, "You have now explained to me what you want to say for your defense. I cannot and will not say those words in that courtroom." And the reason why is because I'm afraid for my job. Another one said there's something called Rule 11. I can be sanctioned, I can be disbarred if I were to actually go in that room and stick to the points. Because I'm telling you right now, it's going to get shot down.
Yeah.
But if I were to stick to it, it would be bad for my career. For this reason, I have submitted a motion to be withdrawn from your case
Yep.
over irreconcilable differences or
Right.
not working in your best interest.
Right.
And so you're going to have to find another lawyer handle this on your
Right.
own.
And this has been addressed by a few people trying to dig at, well, why aren't you able to? Well, is it an
Right.
ethical problem? They'll say ethics, meaning business ethics, meaning their licensing thing, but
reality.
it's not. There's not an ethical dilemma, as in like Kantian ethics, like
Right.
like morals.
It's legal ethics.
It's well, okay. It's yeah.
Judge
It's-
approved
It's
ethics.
yes. It's the approval of their guild. Now we're being vague, and I don't want to be coy on this. It is about challenging. It is about making the prosecutor do a key part of his job that no one wants to make him do.
But they do in military courts. Sorry, I keep bringing it up. They do it in military courts, but okay.
It is one of the chores of a prosecutor, and if they had to do it for everything they prosecuted, they would be on a very short leash with prosecuting people, and no one in the lawyer field
Yeah.
wants prosecutors on a short leash, and wants litigants on a short leash, because it applies in some senses to filing.
Right.
Filing civil cases as well. I've successfully fended off a civil case with similar ideals. And
Without
the
a lawyer.
the judge and several other lawyers, because there was a bunch of parties involved, several lawyers from several parties were desperately trying to keep me from doing this. Bending over backwards, doing weird stuff, trying to convince me not to, taking it very personally
So there's some personal and factual evidence of it working. And
for me,
I mean,
in my instance, yeah.
I myself, if what I'm saying is nonsense, a judge agreed with this nonsense by dismissing a Class A misdemeanor against me, specifically because and only because the prosecution had not provided any factual evidence regarding this element of jurisdiction we're talking
Yep.
about.
An element, by the way, he said element, and I want to explain in case. Element is something that has to be true in order for the bigger proposition to be true. It's a necessary subcomponent. So
Yeah.
we're talking about something that has to be true in order for the accusation to be true. that has to be proven. And before you even go into the point of arguing about the proof of this and proof of that, they're supposed to write it down. They're supposed to have clarified that that is part of their case. This is true because of this. They're not supposed to leave it up in the air vague. They're supposed to state their case on the way into court, both civil and criminal. They're supposed to state a case, and they don't. And no one wants them to, really, from the other lawyers. Making litigants, making plaintiffs and or prosecutors state a case is the thing they won't do.
Because it exposes and it will convince the masses of John Q. taxpayer. It'll lower the curtain. Yeah. Oh, this isn't justice. This is might makes right.
And it
extortion.
And it harms both the prosecutors and the defense attorneys. It harms them, not in the sense of their clients, but in the sense of their next year's clients. The next client. If the next client can get something dismissed, at the outset for failure to state a case, he had no job in that future.
Dude, and along those lines, interestingly enough, very quickly, I mean, this went on for 14 months, but very quickly, once they realized, oh, this guy's going to be able to verbal judo us into next week, the plan was prosecutors don't say a word during any of this. The judge will do all of the time.
Oh, yeah. It's his job to state a case. The judge will help him to not.
Rarely did the prosecutor say anything. I'd even ask them a question. Hey, I'm not even trying to take you on, Judge. I got no problem with you. I just need one more piece of information before I plead guilty and pay the fine. Hey, Mr. Prosecutor, by the way, have you had that piece of information for me? Have you passed it yet? I just want to see, get a copy.
Yeah, get a copy. Did you and the judge talk about it on the golf course, or
making copies,
or did you hand him a piece of paperwork, or is it just a wink and a nod and hey, let's pretend this exists?
And the judge agreed. It had never happened. All charges dismissed. After 3 forced lawyers, after
finally
4 plea deal offers.
He finally answered the question that it had not been put into the record.
Said he wasn't convinced by that and that he was going to dismiss all charges. After making a jury impossible for me to get. So anyway, it sounds like I'm tooting my horn. I'm just saying. I didn't say it for that. I just said.
It happened.
What we're saying is bullshit. How in the hell did that happen?
Judges at points finally come down to the point of saying, oh, this thing didn't happen.
Yep.
I fought you for half a year.
Yep.
Turns out I should have given it to you on day one.
Right.
My bad. We're all good now. It happens. Over and over again.
Right. And after that, I got arrested on the street. All charges dismissed within 2 hearings. They were not going to let me embarrass them all over again over this nonsense. Right. Just over. They swiped me off the street. I wasn't doing a damn thing wrong but holding a camera. Right. I wasn't even saying shit. And then the other one was I kind of purposefully got held in contempt of court by saying too loudly that this anyway. Judge, this is bullshit. She thinks she can do whatever she wants. And I was out within 4 hours, even though the prosecutor recommended they keep me for 30 days. They just weren't going to keep me in there. I'm on a hunger strike. I'm defiant the entire time. And I'll just back this up to the main point. We're just trying to add this ability to MGTOW so you can go your own way and not the government's way at the end.
So the point there is that if we're wrong, these judges were delusional in agreeing with us after some fight.
Over dozens of hearings. Having done the opposite.
A highly formal, highly involved fight.
In their house with their guns and their rule book.
Yeah.
And their language. Anyway, let's move on. All right, we'll make this last one really quick. So you have mentioned that your source of power apparently primarily is this generating of public and political pressure that can potentially beat a judge. What are you talking about? If you're going to beat a judge, it's through the merits and a good lawyer.
Yeah. There is no public pressure scorecard. The audience is not polled.
Right.
This isn't Maury.
Right.
They don't. There is no yell if you think that you agree with this defendant. Applausometer. That is not happening. So now we're talking about getting into the mind of these judges and what's the idea. Most people. I'm sorry. So let me start. The idea most people have about legal systems is that it is a machine that will produce an output that is predictable. If you input factor A, B, and C, generally speaking, you'll turn the crank, and out will pop guilty, or out will pop not guilty, or out will pop, she gets custody, or alimony, or whatever, or out will pop split custody or something.
Yeah.
Now they'll think, oh, maybe it's broken, but it'll always be broken in the same way.
A plea deal.
They think that, oh, well, it's a rigged game, so it always pops out. She gets custody. Yeah. He gets the bills.
Yep.
Now, there's a factor here. These judges do, in fact, need to worry about some things about how they're viewed by their peers and how they're viewed by the people they work with and how they're viewed by their family and their community.
The judge above them, too.
And
the presiding judge in a courthouse.
And sometimes they have a judge above them. Yeah. And sometimes they have an appellate panel that's reading about them being unable to do what they were supposed to do. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to get you through arraignment
by selling
cleanly, and to get you to smile and maybe bow your head and to get you to feel it's like I plead not guilty, or I plead guilty. Mm-hmm. Their whole job revolves around getting one of those two things said, and absent that, moving on with some plan B. And if instead you spent months saying, listen, I'm trying to get a simple yes or no. Do I have a right to this information that I'm trying to ask for? Just tell me I don't have a right to it and we can go from there. They won't do that. They won't answer the question that but they won't let you at that answer, and they won't let you reveal that you don't have it and that you have a right to it. It's a months-long fight over those three little things.
Yeah. And everything that Gary's talking about right now specifically has to do with this generation of public and therefore political pressure. Luckily for us, there are ways to make recordings in the courtrooms. And luckily for us, there is the internet and ways to transmit this to everyone permanently on the record forever. While attaching their name to it, we can do this. So there's ways to generate public and political pressure in ways that didn't exist before, and this has daddy government scared.
Oh yeah, they're
scared. This accountability.
They're trying to get laws passed about all this stuff. They're constantly putting up new signs about recording devices and the punishment of.
Yeah. Some you can't even bring in the cell phone.
Oh no. Right. Well, I mean, unless you're a lawyer.
Unless you're a lawyer. I've seen the lawyers in a courtroom where that was the rule, actively surfing the web on their cell phone during a recess.
Right. Funny thing is that's an advantage. They can surf the web in a break where you can't.
Right. You can't even have a computer.
So it's like, let's give them a few extra tools that their opponent doesn't get.
Right. So if you're able to do this effectively, and not everybody is, but if you are, effectively by this definition in this context means not being right while they're wrong, not embarrassing them while you score points. It is being convincing through being easily digestible in what you're saying, using simple language, to convince John Q. taxpayer and anybody on your YouTube channel that may make a phone call or write an email. It is in convincing the average taxpayer to be on your side because he sees how reasonable and professional you're being, while the government is declining to answer even the most basic relevant yes or no clarifications of what it is they're alleging, while threatening you with jail if you don't shut up. It exposes that they're such a bully and you look like such the victim. I know this is so counterintuitive to how, especially an alpha male would deal with a confrontation, but this is where the power comes from. You're not going to alpha dog a courtroom. Obviously, it's never going to happen. Losing your cool and getting angry and having outbursts, never going to happen. Being confident, prepared, with a sincere voice, with a slight smile, right? Being very reasonable and accommodating, even if you can, respectful. All of this scores big-time points with the public, and in this
respecting that you're in a dangerous situation and maintaining some dignity to yourself. Not respectful as in kissing ass, but
I'm not kissing ass, but I will feign respect.
All right.
I won't say Your Honor. I won't stand when the judge enters the room, but I pop a sir out here when I don't mean it. I may play softball for a while when I don't mean it. So it's a feigning of respect. I don't respect anything about this. It's not a courtroom of judges and lawyers. It's just goons in costumes calling themselves such to steal from you. So
that brings up a good point. if you were if you the viewer if people were in a coffee shop drinking coffee sitting across from someone who happened to be a judge, and you had the same kind of behavior out of that judge, the same kind of asshole behavior that they pull on defendants in front of them all day long, you'd be like, piss off, you
fuck
ass.
out of you.
It's like,
fuck?
yeah, who behaves like that? You
Right.
3-year-old.
Right.
But put them behind a bunch of mahogany, 4 feet up higher than everybody
With
else in a
4
big black
bailiffs
dress.
with guns in
And
the
then
room.
suddenly, not only do you say, sir, your honor and stuff like that, but you also feel it in your heart.
Oh, yeah.
You take your balls and you throw them down the hall and walk into that court. And it's very difficult. I mean, it's something you have to fight and learn to fight. But because, you feel subservient. You feel beta. You feel...
Well,
You feel like you'd let them screw your girlfriend.
Well, okay, but once you get over... I got over that quick.
It's
I've never
tough,
really
though.
been that way. And so I just want to put it out there.
All right.
Eventually you get to the point where you can't wait for them to call your turn, that you just know it doesn't matter what they say, you're going to humiliate the shit out of them and embarrass them big time with a smile, and you're not nervous about it at all. You see that, it looks like a church, it's got this reverence and this costumes with the guns and everything, the threat in the air, and how people are so scared. And eventually, just for the viewers' benefit, you can lose this fear very quickly.
And that's my point.
Yeah.
I know I felt that in me, and that's what made me obsessed with understanding what's going on around me, obsessed with understanding that scenario, and obsessed with becoming not so intimidated by it.
Yeah. That's some man shit right there. That is some MGTOW shit right there. That is a man going his own way and not daddy government's pay me or I'll throw you in jail way. Let me threaten you with coercive threats and extort money from you. No more complicated than the playground lunch recess bully takes your lunch money. No more complicated than that. That is a man going his own way, and that's what all this is about, just to bring it home.
All right.
You got anything else? We're good. End of the video.
Outstanding.
See you on the next one.